Hello, this is Dan the Furniture Repairman. Today we're repairing the damaged veneer on this furniture. You can see right here it's quite severe. By the hinge it tore off. This is the other side. And this looks almost impossible to repair without reveneering it, but we're going to glue it back down. We're going to use System 3 2-part epoxy. This works very quickly. I like epoxy in this application because it has very strong gap strength in case there is any gaps in the joint when we get it all clamped back together. I mix it by eye, equal parts, and then just stir it up. Now you can use wood glue here, but I think epoxy is much better because if you have any problems with there being spaces or anything like that, the epoxy is going to span that and hold this together, and it's a much stronger adhesive. So now I'm pouring it into my syringe, and I'm going to use the syringe to kind of shoot it underneath the areas where I can't get to. And I'm going to do this two ways. I'm going to show you how to do it with the syringe, and I also just kind of use a utility knife. But once I want to get the epoxy into the syringe, I want to make sure I kind of get it flowing out the front there. And then I'm just going to slide it around. You can see I have that little popsicle stick stuck in the side to hold that up in the air a little bit. And we want to make sure we get enough so that we get squeeze out when we press it back down. So we get good squeeze out. We know we're going to get a good amount every place. There's my squeeze out right there. The next thing I'm going to do is glue down this piece at the same time. Now this is a 15-minute epoxy, so you got to move quick. You can do this in stages. You can do one side and glue it down and then the other. But you also have to make sure you clean your epoxy out. Please remember, like, subscribe, put comments, ask questions, call me a shoemaker. Everything is good with that. Now, I brushed the epoxy around, just a little inexpensive acid brush, they call it, glue brush. You could use whatever you want. You could use the popsicle stick to move it around. You want to just kind of paint it on. That's all. You don't need too much. Now, I always apply my adhesive to both sides of my piece. That way I make sure I get good coverage on my piece when I glue it back down, when I put it together. The reason why I do this is a lot of times I'll fix other repairs that'll come into me and I'll see the adhesive is enough, but it's not stuck to one side. So they put it on one side, clamped it together, and they thought it would push into the other side. This lets me kind of work the adhesive into the grain, into the wood itself, and make sure I get a real good coverage there. Now I'm just going to press it down, and this is just denatured alcohol. You could also use white vinegar. If you're having trouble getting denatured alcohol these days, white vinegar works also. And I'm cleaning up my excess. Not really a necessary step, but it does just help things work better. Wax paper, this keeps everything from sticking. My block of wood is going to press down evenly. And after that, what we're going to do is we're going to clamp this down. Now I'm putting another block of wood underneath so I don't dent my piece from the bottom, and I get a good even displacement of the pressure right there, and I'm squeezing it back down. Now the front's a little bit exposed there, and I could see that it's getting pressed down enough, and I've got my squeeze out on the front, and I'm good. Now I'm off to the other side. Now on this side, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this little flap out right here. And the reason why is it's not really pushing back down nicely. So I'd rather cut it and create a line that I'll have to deal with. But that'll give me the ability to move it around and get it in good position. So I'm just running my razor knife right there, and I'm kind of testing whether it's going to break off easy or not. And now I'm just going to come back and just a little bit more pressure down there, and see if I can get this piece just to kind of break off. It looks like two pieces to me here. We do have links to Mohawk products, and we'll put a link to the epoxy in the description below. If you're trying to get a hold of touch-up products and things like that, we'll let you know where you can get them. So there we go. This just broke off just like that. Now I'm feeling much better. I'm going to clean the edge here, and this was part of the problem right there, that spot. So this is going to let me kind of seam it back together. Now before I glue anything, I'm always dry fitting it and making sure that things will go back together before I mix up my adhesive. And right here, that little flap's going to have to be glued back down. And I almost have to slide it in place, and sliding those wood fibers together is going to give me the best fit right there. So that looks much better. So I'm glad I cut it out, because now I'm able to get it down into a better position. Now with this little piece right here, sometimes there's little fibers that kind of spring to life when things break. This has a lot to do with the bound tension in the wood. So sometimes you got to clean a little bit of stuff out of there to get things to fit back correctly. And again, this is going to be a matter of just kind of sliding it in place. And we're missing a bit of the veneer here, but we're going to fill that in and deal with it. So I'm looking at it now, and it looks much better. I feel like it'll sit down better for me here. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to mix up our epoxy, and we're going to glue this back down. Now, you saw us mix the epoxy already, so there's no reason to watch it twice. And in this case, I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do is just use my utility knife, slide it under right here, and kind of push the epoxy underneath. So you don't always need to go the hypodermic needle route. You can definitely just, use razor blades, make a little shim, make whatever it is. You just got to get your adhesive underneath there and get enough of it underneath there so that when you push it down, you see some good squeeze out. And then, you'll have enough coverage to keep it in place for a good long time. So I'm just working my adhesive in there like that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start painting the rest of the epoxy on there. And I'm making sure I get it, in those edges where all the wood comes together, because we're not going to want those to peel back up on us. Now my pieces, same thing. Always coat both sides of anything you're gluing back together with your adhesive. It doesn't take much more work, and it is very good insurance to make sure it holds together. And now this is my little piece right here, and the reason why I dry fit is also teaches me like what order to put the pieces back. So I know the big piece first, the little piece second. It'll all go back together well for me, and push it all back together. Make sure I'm in a good spot. Nothing too difficult here. If I can do it, trust me, you can do it. You go slow, you take your time, you practice. Little wax paper, block of wood, and same thing. We're gonna put our clamp on, apply pressure. Now this is a 15-minute set epoxy, but I usually let it dry overnight. And there's different timed epoxies, so if you're, it's going to take you longer, just get a 45-minute set epoxy or a 24-hour set epoxy. Just make sure you don't run out of time. So now I'm taking my clamp off. It's the next day, and the blocks kind of stick a little bit because there's a little bit of epoxy leaking through and a couple other things going on there. So even though it's wax paper, got to give it a pop right there. So I'm peeling my wax paper back off, and that way I use the wax paper so I don't glue my block to the piece. And we're looking much flatter here. So we're already made a tremendous improvement. We're nice and flat. We have some rebuilding to do, but we're moving in the correct direction, which is a good thing. Now this side, same thing. We're gonna just back our clamp off, and then it's one of those things when you pull it back, you're relatively certain it's going to work, but every now and then something shifted around on you. But here we go here. Again, we're flat. We're much smoother, and we look like we even took out a bunch of those little wrinkles and everything. And we do have a couple of gouges or holes right here that we're going to have to fill. So we're going to move into that part of the video now. So what I'm going to do first is sand it. I'm going to sand it just with 320, and I'm going to use a block. And the reason why I want to use a block is the block is going to tell me what's high and what's low and what I have to work. Now, you could use your hand on this, but your hand is going to conform to whatever it's running over, and it just makes it a little harder to get a real good flat surface. Now, this is never going to be perfect again, and it all depends on what what level of finish you're looking for. So right now I have some epoxy that's squeezed out, and it's kind of sitting on top there. So I'm going to just take a razor blade. I'm going to use it almost perpendicular like this. I'm going to use it like a scraper, and I'm just scraping off the excess epoxy. If I can get it lifting up, then I can peel it off. So it's, stuck to the old shellac there, the old varnish, so it didn't penetrate into the wood, so it will lift up. But it takes a little bit of work, but you want to get that out of the way first. You can sand it out of the way, but it just goes much faster. Just scrape it all out of the way. You can put finish on it. It will take finish, but I'd rather just kind of get back to the original finish and raw wood and work with that. So I'm going to go through and scrape off all my old epoxy. And once I have my epoxy all out of the way, I'm going to come back now with 150 grit, because the 320 grit wasn't going to be aggressive enough to sand it down to where I felt like it was flat. Now I'm going to sand through the varnish and the color, and then even some of the wood in this area. Now this happens to be a very thick veneer, so it will allow me to sand it a bit. But definitely make sure you understand how thick your veneer is. Modern veneers are much thinner. So I'm going to block it with 150, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to block it now with 220. And I'm just basically going to see how how close I can get it to flat. And right here, you can see where the raw wood is, and it meets the finished wood. Well, it means the finished wood isn't sanded down enough, because if they were both sanded down enough, then they would be a pretty equal sand line. And now I'm coming back with my fingers on a fingertip sand, and now I'm running my hand sand over everything, and I can kind of press down on those other sides and create a nice transition. That's really what it's about, is creating the transition between the repair and the existing stuff. You don't want to feel where the repair is. So I usually use my hands, and your hands are your best set of eyes sometimes. So I'm going to just wipe the dust off with a dry paper towel, and now I'm coming back with just a little denatured, and this is kind of what we've achieved so far. So we're nice and flat. We're not all crinkled up. We have a couple of gouges we're going to have to fill in, but all in all, I'm very encouraged with the way this looks. Now I've got my line, and then right here are the gouges I have to fill in, and I do have that line from where I cut it out, but we're going to deal with that. So now it's time for our old friend Mr. Bondo. Now always mix your hardener up before you try to squeeze it out. Just make sure you get it squeezed out. Sometimes it can squirt out like a lot of liquid. And after that, just a little bit of Bondo is all I'm using, so I just need a little bit of hardener. And this is that wonderful clam knife. We have them all over my shop, and they're great tools. They're kind of like pallet tools. They mix stuff, they pry stuff, they lift stuff. And now I'm just kind of putting my Bondo in those two gouges right there, pressing it in. We're gonna fill all that in. Now the Bondo, I like Bondo because it sets up very quickly. Now I'm coming back with my razor blade, and I'm going to scrape, and it looks like on one side I did pretty good, but on the other side I need to add a little bit more material, or the razor blade kind of pulled it out. So I'm going to just kind of keep working it until I feel good about what I achieved there, and at that point we let it dry. Now this is denatured alcohol on a cloth, and I'm using that to clean up the extra Bondo so that I don't have to sand it back off. Now this is Bondo glazing putty, so this is a you don't have to mix hardener with this. It just comes right out of the tube, and I'm just have a little bit on that razor blade there, and it's a finer putty, so it's something that'll go into areas where Bondo has a little bit of trouble in, so it's a good finishing putty. So I like to use it after my Bondo to get the last few spots and holes and everything filled in. And then I had that little spot right there, you see, and as I scrape it back off, the piece will take it where it needs it, but you also have to kind of create a transition, so you got to kind of pull with that. Now that's all done. I'm back with my block, and I'm going to sand down my work right here. So I'm always block sanding. I don't want to fingertip sand until the very end. I want to block sand, so that'll knock the highs down, and it will leave the lows the way they are. So we've block sanded this, and usually my block sanding is 150, and now I'm coming back with 220, but I'm also stretching my sanding out a little bit so that I'm not just sanding that one spot and creating a little bit of a divot. Now I'm filled in pretty good, and I'm feeling this with my hands, and my hands are letting me know that I'm good. So I'm on both sides, have been repaired, and now this is 320 grit sandpaper. And what I'm going to do is sand the entire door. I know I'm spraying this whole door. There's no way I'm going to be able to spot this in and have it look right. So I'm going to spray the entire door, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use shellac, because there's shellac on there now. Now, you sometimes can't tell. After a while, you just kind of get familiar with finishes. But, you know, the rule is shellac sticks to everything, and everything sticks to shellac. So it's always a good product to use on repairs, because it'll tend to have less chemical reactions. It'll tend to bond very well. And then you can even go back afterwards and apply whatever it is you want for a top coat on top of it. And it's a great primer and base. So now I'm wiping down my sanding dust, dry paper towel, getting it out of my way. And then this is just denatured alcohol. So a little denatured alcohol on a rag. Now I'm just going to wipe this edge to edge. I'm not going back and forth, because shellac is alcohol based, and the denatured alcohol will loosen the shellac, and you can see the colors coming off onto the cloth there. So, you know, it was probably a orange tint in the shellac, or maybe they put a little color in there. So I'm just going edge to edge, because if I go back over the area that I just did, then it's going to grab or maybe pull off too much. So this is the door, and now this is the shellac. So you can see the shines coming, and I'm just going to spray my coat of shellac on there. You could brush it on. I like to spray it on. Now this is de-wax shellac, which means I can put whatever top coat I want on top of it. Now I'm going to complete most of the repairs with shellac, but I will switch over to nitrocellulose lacquer at some point. So I'm going back and forth. I want to get good coverage on the whole door, and I'm going to create like a nice transition, as nice as I can. And this had a very heavy layer of shellac. And when the can disappears, believe it or not, this is just me stopping to shake the can. So make sure you shake the can up and spray it on. And you can see I got a good distance. There's a good fan on there. It's not going to be as good a job as when I shoot something out of my spray gun. But for the first few coats, it definitely gives me a very nice finish to work with. And now I'm going to go over my repair areas just like this, and we're going to see what we ended up with. So we have some color that we have to put back, but what we have is most of our damage looks like it's flattened out. So already the door is looking much better. I'm very happy with this is. Now I'm going to have to let it dry, but I'm feeling very positive. So this is that one side we worked on. We got to add some color and touch it up, and that's the other. This is Dan, the Furniture Repairman. Thank you so much for watching. You all have a good day.